And we're not gonna start over.
Technology. Brand. We're almost there. It's like, do you guys remember in the old days buffering? Buffering.
In a little circle chasing.
Remember? Yeah. There we go.
We need that fiber broadband.
I was just gonna say the fiber.
And we have it here. I think it's more the computer than the connection.
All right, the three-phase electrical update, 7.2.
So CMP was out and talked to our installer, and their thought process was different than what we had thought originally. And what they're going to do is out by the front is a picnic table. They're going to come off Route 1 to the pole that's by the picnic table. That pole will need to be replaced. It'll need to be a little bit bigger pole. And then our amazing Public Works Department will dig a trench back to this back corner right over there. Well, they'll put a transformer. And then it will also run underground over to where the panel needs to be. However, in the meanwhile, our installer is also pursuing a potential different option that would negate having to have three-phase power for the system. So they are researching that option. Unfortunately, she didn't have any update for me other than that today, but they are working on it. And as you can tell, because everything's in a different spot, on a daily basis, almost daily basis, at least 3 days a week, they are here installing the cassette. So they haven't started in our office yet, but police, EMS rooms today, the overnight rooms have been, I believe they started today installing the cassettes in there. So it's a lot. And what they're finding is this building has so many idiosyncrasies. So it's complicated. Even the spacing of the trusses isn't consistent. So it's been a lot of fun for them, but they have been, I have to tell you, they have been absolutely wonderful. Very professional to work with. Very concerned about how they leave the room, so that like every day they ask, is there a meeting tonight? They clean up. It's been considering how bad of experience it could be, it's been a wonderful experience this far.
Communication's been good.
The communication has been very good, yes. So.
Any questions for the town manager on that? 11.3, the solar farm update.
Okay. So, as Mike had asked before about an official update for tonight. And my update for tonight thus far is that we still have not been able, our attorney or myself has not been able to get in contact with Sundog Solar. So just to give everybody an overview of where we're at. Back in 2018, the solar farm at the transfer station went online. In year 6, we had the option to, which is, we're beginning our year 6 back in March. We had the option to purchase it, which we exercised, and it was approved by the voters back in June. Our attorney prepared a contract that was acceptable to Sundog Solar. They then presented us with a maintenance agreement that our attorney then redlined and sent back to them. We had an assumed closing date of towards the end of July, and that date came and went and we didn't hear anything. And since that time, we have been trying to say, hey, we're ready to go. We haven't gotten any comments back on the red line maintenance agreement. So and just so everybody's clear, we haven't paid any money for the solar farm at all, other than what we have paid for the generation of electricity per our initial agreement. So how this works is for the first 6.5 years is they technically own the system. And we were paying originally, I believe it was 10.3 cents per kilowatt hour. But after that 6 year, it changed and it goes from that initial rate, which I will tell you, we saved money on those first 6 years. But now we're at 12.5% less the standard offer of electricity from CMP, but that also includes delivery. So that would make the current rate 15.7 cents per kilowatt hour. And what we would typically pay, because we also set up that we have Constellation as our provider.
That 15 cents includes delivery?
So no, it's 12.5% less than the standard offer that includes electricity generation and delivery.
That includes generation and delivery, the two.
So that's 12.5% less than what electricity and delivery.
I'm gonna have to see an invoice in order to understand that.
So. Yeah, or the agreement.
We can.
Yeah.
Show it to me.
So,
offline.
so our last bill from Sundog was for 15.7 cents per kilowatt hour, and it was in line with, at the time, what CMP.
Did we get charged for delivery on the CMP invoice?
No. So you're not getting double billed.
Well,
We're charged for, we're charged for delivery, but we're not charged for our electric on our electric bills. And then our other issue is if we have a demand charge, you are charged. But when they're figuring out the rate based on the agreement that we have with them, it's 12.5% less than the standard offer, which would be electricity plus delivery. That's how they're making essentially their money. So we have been trying to purchase this. So we only paid for the first quarter of our electric from them. We haven't paid them any more money. We haven't been billed, nor have we paid them for the last, say, quarter of electricity. And we haven't paid for the array itself because they've been silent. And we have an agreement out there that we need to act on because we've been acting in good faith. What our attorney advises is that you, the select board, authorize him to pursue legal avenues with I guess, essentially against Sundog Solar because they're being unresponsive. So we have to force them essentially to close the deal. Now, if it's because they're just too busy, I can't imagine, but there's $164,000 on the table that we need to close this deal. And we made sure before we did anything that the array was in good working order, and it was. Obviously, we're going to have to, because time has elapsed, we'll have to make that check again. But that's kind of where we are, but we've not paid them anything for the array itself. And we have not paid for the last quarter of electricity. So we're kind of in a holding pattern, and I think the attorney needs to take steps. He sent out certified return receipt requested letters. He's called and left messages. I've called and left messages. So we're at that point where he actually may have to take further legal action. And we have that ability under the contract.
Yeah.
Well,
there are two issues here. One is to get the contract signed and put to bed. In other words, to enforce the
Mhm.
conclusion of the contract.
Correct.
And I would strongly urge the board to ask our attorney to pursue those avenues. The second concern, though, is the maintenance contract.
Correct.
In my opinion, this company is dealing in bad faith. And they would have to jump through hoops for me to convince me that they are able to carry on that maintenance work for us. they lost credibility as far as I'm concerned.
Right, and I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
So are we in position to want this contract to be enforced if we don't know who and how the maintenance is going to be handled on the array?
So,
We own it.
We have two options. We can contact another company that we did meet with. And they would be willing to take that maintenance over.
Yeah.
And we also have our in-house electrician that we contract with who has worked on solar before. And that might even be, they currently do all of our streetlight repairs. So they've had experience working with solar farms of actually even greater size than what we have. So we do have two options. But I do think it's imperative that we make them move on the contract.
Beyond the electrical components and that sort of thing, how about maintenance of the ground underneath and
So maintenance
all
of the
those sorts
ground,
of
we
things.
do two cuts a year on it. The
Okay.
Public Works
Okay.
Department does. John's thought about goats. Borrowing
That's a
some
good idea.
goats. I know it sounds silly, but it's a really good idea.
Really good money in that. I've seen goats stand on top of solar panels before. But, not only the maintenance, but like warranties, you know, I certainly,
Well, all of that
Fair
has
enough.
to be turned over to us. So all of the warranties, all of the actual operation manual, everything that they have has to be turned over to us. That's part of the agreement that our attorney prepared.
I make a motion that we have the attorney start the process to get some answers from Sundog.
Second that.
Any more discussion on that?
Yeah, are there any other avenues? You know, I hate to get involved legally because the clock is ticking and can get very expensive very quickly. But is there any independent things like Better Business Bureau, or can we run a Dun and Bradstreet on the company and see what they're doing financially? If they're,
I called
You're-
his dad.
I mean, no, I mean, have
I
they
literally did.
declared bankruptcy? I mean.
Not that I'm aware of and not that the attorney's aware of.
Okay.
But I mean, that was his father was the person who we initially dealt with,
Mhm.
who has since retired from the company. I did reach out and say, hey, you know, he has to get in touch with us. So, I mean, I wasn't being funny. I was legitimately exhausting all avenues
I've
of,
seen the vans around. So.
yeah, I think it's a matter of being too busy and thinking, oh, it'll wait, but we're done waiting. You know,
I mean, to execute a contract, we could travel there to their office. It could
I
be done
believe
in
our
15
attorney,
minutes.
our attorney offered that, I guess, in the emails and. So,
We can show up at their job site, one of their job sites.
as long as you're driving, I'll go.
I'll go.
We got a motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstention?
One mention. Here,
Yeah.
that is, they're liable for damages here.
The way that
The attorney would know that.
the way that we did get props for from our attorney, who was not our attorney at the time, for the crafting of the agreement. So,
Okay, 11.4 Jefferson Street resident request. In your packet, you should see a request on some of the residents on Jefferson Street.
and Dozier's here tonight. I don't know if she wants to get up and talk about it, or if you want me to read it, or how you want to proceed.
If you'd mind speaking on,
Um,
you use the podium, please. So
that way, everybody.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of the petition with me, but I think it's yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, basically the degree of damage that people are seeing in their yards and their cars is it's gotten kind of scary. And so we were hoping that we could have more collaboration on identifying where the speed signs, which I understand are coming, could be located. we talked with Chief Lash, who told us that most of the accidents had happened between Bear Hill Hardware and Mill Street. And the signs are outside of that area farther, I think, than is useful by the time people get to that curve heading towards Route 1. And most of the accidents have happened heading towards Route 1, although I understand from Julie that most of the traffic is going the other way. Was that right?
So. I don't know that it's most, but I gave you a number the other day that I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, 3,700.
3,700.
yeah.
And in one way.
Going in which direction?
I don't remember which
That's
direction.
Toward Route 1.
Towards Route 1.
Yeah. If they, that's based on that number, that
Yeah.
study they did?
Yes.
Yeah, that was 30.
Was it 3,700 coming that way? Yeah.
Hmm.
How much was it going? I don't.
I don't think we looked at that. But the margin for error there is really small. People's houses are 10, 12 feet from the roadway, and the banking on the other side there is it's pretty steep. You know, there's no place to get away from something that's coming at you. And there's kids there, there's elderly people, there's a lot more people in town who are now walking their dogs through there. So I think it's just I mean, we all think it's just a matter of time before somebody's, seriously hurt there.
I walked that today. And one of the poles, I guess, is already in the ground. The tall
Both
pole
poles are in the ground.
past Irving. I didn't see
Because the other
I
ones,
saw the other one on Friendship Street.
those are the only two that we're
Okay.
talking about.
Okay,
So their request would be to put it, not put it on Friendship Street, but to put it, both of them on Jefferson Street.
no, I think we need that one on Friendship Street too.
Yeah,
I guess
that's
what I
not
would-
quite accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to keep the one on Friendship
Yeah.
because we know that that's
So you
necessary.
just want to add.
Just want to move it if possible. Because the speeding, if the accidents are happening bound towards Route 1 but the sign is facing the traffic coming the other way, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
When you say move, sorry, John, may I? May I ask a question?
Yes.
When you say move it, which one are you talking about?
The one that's by Elm Street now?
The one on.
Irving.
The one
The one
going,
by the Irving
going
station,
south.
just
Yeah,
after the
yeah.
Irving station. You want to move that one?
Yeah,
And where would you move that?
move that to before, it would be in the way of traffic that's facing Route 1 and before Bear Hill Hardware on the right there.
Sort of near that School Street intersection?
Yeah, like maybe near where the Reed Mansion was, that area right there,
Yeah,
before
Well-
people hit that curve.
near Patty's house?
Yeah, before that,
Before your
yeah.
house?
We, Patty and Chris and we had a conversation this afternoon. And it's a lot of, it seems preferable to Patty if the edge near the Derby house is better.
That yellow one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Derby's have no objection to that.
But that would be on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, I mean, you
in
want
other
to,
words, we wouldn't be covered going the other direction. Be two signs coming towards Route 1, one on Friendship Road, one on Jefferson Street. And I think you're talking like between that crosswalk
Mhm,
and School Street,
mhm, mhm.
We want to move the one that is planned for Elm
right?
up further.
And face in this direction,
the other way.
face it the
Yeah,
other way.
yeah. I mean, ideally, we'd have one in both spots, but I know that, the town would have to buy another sign. And given that the accidents are happening in that section, makes more sense to
But-
us to move it there.
But so the accidents are, part of this was to address the accidents that were happening downtown at the intersection.
Right.
Right.
So, and we've had conversations, even Charlotte sent something to the DOT. The DOT is like, well, they're your signs, you can move them. But when we did this specific issue was slowing traffic downtown. Their safety people were the ones that gave us those two locations. So
Mhm.
if we wanted to add something, that's one thing, but I think that we need to, the speed tables that are coming, you and I've talked about this. The speed tables that hopefully, well, we know we've gotten the grant, we haven't gotten the paperwork, which means we haven't got the money in. Until we have the money, we can't start the design process, but the speed tables are, I think, a big key for true success. I don't think, and I talked to Chief Lash about this, that signs would have helped either of those accidents that you guys have experienced. I'm not sure.
It's not those that I'm worried about, it's the next one.
Correct, but a lot of times, at least those two accidents that I've been aware of had extenuating, I would say, circumstances that would probably not have. One was a drunk driver, driving under the influence, and another one had several issues. So I think that, I'm not sure the signs are the answer as much as the speed tables are going to be the answer to actually slow the traffic down.
I don't know how a speed table would slow the traffic before it heads into the dead man's curve, as we call it. There would be, and it won't happen till next summer at the earliest, right?
At the earliest, but I think what the initial plan was to have 2 to 3 speed tables on Jefferson.
Right.
So
I'm worried about this winter. And there's no sign on the street, there's no speed limit sign on the street except the one that Dozier carved out of the weeds by that.
So and that's one thing that I went and talked to, had a long conversation with Daryl about was, one, can they do something about the water that runs across the road? Which Public Works has to deal with the salting. So right there on that corner, there's that issue with the water that's ongoing, and they tried to fix it. John's here tonight. Why couldn't they exactly address that water?
They gotta go on private land
That's what I thought.
to try to solve the problem. I talked with you about it.
Mhm.
We're supposed to go up there.
So Daryl, hopefully the MDOT will address that water issue prior to the winter. And I did ask him what other signage we could put up other than the dynamic speed sign. If they can put up other signage that would alert people of a double blind curve or something like that.
There's, slippery when wet, whatever, watch out for ice, it can't be that hard.
So, well, again, it's their state road, so if they say that's what they would like there, it can happen, but we've had good relationships with them. And I'm glad you met with the chief. But there still is a process, so I asked him for their safety recommendations, their actual safety team.
The chief?
No, the
DOT.
DOT safety team, as to what their recommendations were for the water issue and for signage on Jefferson. Because it's their road. We maintain it during the winter, but that is their road.
So what's the rate of speed of that process then?
I'm hoping typically when I have made requests like that, they get back to me within a week or two, to be honest, as long as a speed study isn't warranted.
I had no expectation of the person I talked to getting back.
Daryl is, I will tell you, the MDOT for the last 7 years, I can only speak for the time I've been here, was a little slow to start, but in the last 6 years, they have been fabulous. Dave Allen, John asks a lot of times, hey, call them up and see what you can do. And we've been really, really successful with them. And the downtown partnership grant that we have is going to be phenomenal because that is going to get those speed tables in. And I think that's one of the things. And the other thing that we're doing legislatively, which is important, is through the Maine Municipal Association's legislative process. And if we have our legislator on board currently, what a recommendation that we made to champion was for towns that have their own police departments like we do. When a speeding ticket is issued, because speeding is an issue all over town, is there a way to allow us to levy an additional fine? Because people aren't going to stop speeding till it hits them in the pocketbook. So if you're caught speeding in Waldeboro, and bear in mind that those tickets go the money goes right to the state for that. If we can have a local fine for speeding and add money to the top of that, that truly might, but it would require some legislative work, truly might change how people perceive speeding in Waldeboro. And, you know, maybe it won't work for counties and things like that, or maybe it'll catch on and people will be really into it, but when you look at other states compared to our state, we are lagging behind in what our fines are for speeding. So a first offense, second offense, third offense isn't as much as a first offense in some other places.
Me. Just quickly on that point. There have been accidents in town where people are driving without licenses anyway, so that's sort of a moot point with that. But I appreciate that we're here and we're batting this around because I realize some of the folks didn't know about the speed tables and signs that were coming in, it just, for whatever reason. So if we leave them as the state has suggested with one by Irving, with that grant, and we add one across from the Legion facing Mill Street, just somehow.
During
Or
that,
something.
during
even-
that design process, if that's something that's recommended, they might be able to do something different. I mean, if we give, once we get our engineer involved, and then our engineer will meet with the 3Ds, Dennis, Dave, and Daryl. I'm sure they'll come up with something, because like I said, they've been great. Right now, the two dynamic speed signs that were designed were to slow traffic coming down into, and if you talk to the people who live and that when they come down that hill from Irving is when they really are picking up speed. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm a walker. I'm
Yeah.
out all hours of the day. I
And-
see it. I see who's doing it.
I will tell
See
you,
the phones in their hand.
Justin Hills, Officer Justin, he is the speeding enforcer. He was sitting on Old Augusta Road 2 days ago and wasn't there for 10 minutes and had two people. So I know you've told the story in public of when he sits in your driveway.
Less than 3 minutes.
Mhm.
He's got, I've seen him stop 6 people in the course of an hour.
Are they coming from Route 1 Avenue?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Not always, not
No.
always. They are coming from,
Coming
In
from
town.
Township, yeah. in
they
town.
come down around the corner and they just fly down through.
So they hit either way, they're either going downhill to go uphill or they're coming back down. It is amazing. It is.
Or even just coming up Friendship, coming out of Friendship into town, the commute traffic, as I said, I'm out walking in the morning and they have been patrolling on occasion in different spots, so they're looking for it. They can't be everywhere.
And
But I
that's,
don't know that a sign is necessarily gonna make that big a difference. Maybe the money piece will, but if it was grant money to sneak in one more something, maybe it's a sign that just says lights isn't a radar one or something. Something that catches people's attention as they're heading towards Mill Street.
right, and that might be a solar sign with the curve on it or something to get the people's attention.
Being across the street from the hardware store, and Doja, I'm sure you see it. There's so many near misses every single day with the traffic going in and out of that hardware store. So it's another reason to try to slow people down. 'Cause they're
Well,
coming
it's-
through that section.
It is, and it's, I think we all see it. I mean, I was pulling out of School Street. Was it school? No. What's the really steep one?
School Street.
Yeah, I was right. See, this is starting to doubt myself the other day, and I had to do a double take just to make sure nobody was actually, when I pull out of there, I roll my window down so I can hear them coming.
Coming out my driveway.
It's like coming out of your driveway, exactly, but it is. So I don't want you to think we're not doing something, because there are plans, it's just, it might not happen as soon, but the water and additional signage I have asked the state for.
I would like to thank whoever, caused the painted stripe down the middle to be restored. Because I keep an eye over there and I see people staying in their lane now. So just painting that stripe helped.
Was that us?
No. State.
They,
State.
I was thinking it's their road. It was probably the state.
Anyway, it worked. I mean, it's not 100%, but
Every bit helps.
And I think they're willing to help. It's just a matter of, you know. I also reminded them that it would be great with our village partnership grant if we could get that paperwork and get that started, because once it's official, we can start the process. So the sooner we get that done, better.
I do hope they look carefully at that School Street, Jefferson Street intersection and maybe think about putting another feedback sign in that location. It is before the area Charlotte's talking about. It's before you get to the ice. It does give people coming down School Street a bit more security, that people coming down Jefferson heading toward Route 1 are being told to slow down.
And it might be that where that crosswalk is, that's gonna be a speed, that's a natural place for the speed table. You're
Yep.
gonna have to slow down.
Right.
You're not gonna have an option.
Yep.
Well,
that pedestrian crosswalk is marked. It has green signs up that tell you that there's no such signs by the crosswalk at Mill Street. And you can't see it when you're coming until you're right over the hill.
so that crosswalk would also be an area that will be an elevated speed table.
Right, right.
I thought it was 2 or 3 on Jefferson alone. We added speed tables. You're gonna have to, but the nice thing is they don't do what a speed, you're not gonna hear this dump to them. It's not gonna make a noise because that's why they're low and flat, but you do have to slow down. People will, and it's visual, and they'll be painted with the crosswalks on top. At least that's what I've been told, and that's what I experience when I drive through. If you go
Augusta.
in Augusta,
Yeah.
you do slow down, and I've been winding my windows down to hear if they make a noise. So,
Anything else on that topic? And I'll say it again. The speeding topic comes up at least once a month. So like I said before, that's what I drive for a living. And I see it all over the place. 5 o'clock in the morning, going across the Noblesboro stretch, 55 miles an hour, people are flying by me on both sides. I follow the speed limit.
well, and you're in a dump truck, so
Yeah.
people automatically think they need to pass you.
All right, 11.5, LWCF Yellow Book Appraisal.
If you'll recall, this was in Max's, report to you, that's land,
Oh,
water
yeah.
conservation. Because we were out of compliance, we could not apply for grants under the land, water conservation, so. We met with the head of that, program, well, Max met with him last week and had a really great meeting. And they are, so essentially the Sylvania property and the plan for a potential park there would meet our obligation that we need to fulfill from the tennis courts. And that would qualify us to apply, and we could be able to apply for our first round of funding in the spring, which is huge. But what we need is a yellow book appraisal, which we had already authorized. You had already authorized last year for the ball field, the Little League ball field, which they then changed their mind. So we already have the funding for this through the TIF that you approved. But we would need a motion tonight to then move that from the ball field down to the Sylvania site
I
and
make that motion.
Office's house site.
So I make that motion. So we would do a yellow book appraisal of the Sylvania site under the LWCF regime.
Motion's made and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
And I just want to say, he was truly excited. The gentleman from the fund. And it's been hard to get him on board with some of our other ideas we've had, but this particular idea and just the initial plan that he saw he was very excited about. And I think it's a great opportunity to get a significant amount of funding for that area. And while we have John Daigle captive, I just didn't know if you wanted to update where we are at with our paving program.
Paving program, we got 80% of the road done. The other ones we're gonna do in the spring, I've got the other end of Old Augusta. We got, Mill Street and Burnham Road left, that's all we have left, all the other ones are done. The reason we put it off is the state came in and started hot top in 32, they ran into problems. So Hager was able to start on ours right away. And of course, putting shoulders on and everything else has put us behind a little bit. But we'll finish the rest off in the spring and still be within the same budget. I don't see an issue.
And just so everybody's aware, we were down in Public Works.
Yep.
Due to some illnesses and also, one person down, so, it did slow us down a bit. And then the state
Yep.
issue with Blacktop
Right.
was good for us on the front end because it allowed us to get stuff done, but now on the back end, everybody's playing catch up with, because I guess the mix was off.
It's like everyone's paving this year, seems like.
Everybody's paving. But I understand that it was, when we approved the extra funding during the budget committee meeting, John promised, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't for a lack of trying to get it all done.
Right.
It was definitely not for a lack of trying. And they are dealing with a culvert on
Old Augusta,
Old Augusta Road that is actually a state culvert.
state culvert.
So we are working with them to address the culvert issues that we have.
Is that the one on 220? The intersection of 220?
Agendas for the next meeting.
We have a public hearing for the GA.
Yes.
Is that it? Anything else you think of? I'm sure some other stuff.
I'm sure it'll be a solar update and a
Right.
three-phase electric update and a
The
duck
duck
puddle
puddle
with the
update,
update
yeah,
as well.
those three.
And I also want to be able to give at the next meeting a Kaler's Corner date.
Okay.
I know we had talked about a three-way stop and they gave me the answer to that, but I wanted to make sure that we actually had it on the agenda in case there were people who were interested to
Yep.
be able to come. Have that conversation. And we may have the first pass, we may have of, you guys had wanted to see a new traffic ordinance that was updated, which I've been working on with the chief. And so got rid of all the old name whose homes it referred to, stop sign by this person's house, making it more.
Now, we'll know this up.
I know you won't. I know you won't.
And if I could
Trying.
just, besides to fellow board members to, if you think of something else you want me to try and get on the agenda for the 21st of October, get it to me like tomorrow, if you could. And Pam, I'll talk to you maybe on Thursday, we can begin something up.
I maybe too much for that first meeting, but I'm just wondering if they could do an $81 million bond look back. To see how we could smooth that process. And how they prioritized what they wanted to
Yeah,
do.
that might be a little bit too much for that first meeting.
Just to keep them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It may come up in conversation, but
Yeah, that's fine.
motion to adjourn.